Right, welcome everybody. Today's the inaugural episode of Radio Europa, a podcast brought to you exclusively by Defend Europa TV, where we aim to explore news and views from every corner of the continent. My name's William, I'm one of the founding members of the Defend Europa team, and I'll be your host this time around. On the show today we've got Alessandro from Italy and Laura from Yorkshire in England. We're going to be talking about a couple of things. Most importantly, online censorship, the Italian elections, and Austrian politics. So if I can start with the censorship and bring you guys in on this discussion. I mean, obviously we had our account locked on Twitter for using a rune. Obviously, you know, that's kind of ridiculous. It's a religious symbol. It's an ancient alphabet.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to get your thoughts on, you know, where is this going? When's it going to stop? You know, what's the limit to this censorship?
I don't think it will stop. I mean, think about the Paul Nellen thing. Paul Nellen got suspended for talking about certain topics, and basically part of his fan base started, changing their profile pictures to his face. And what happened is that people basically are getting their account locked because their profile picture is Paul Nellen. I'm not joking. It's been basically his picture is basically being recognized by the bot as a hate speech or something like that. Like, it's crazy. Twitter will not stop until we're all gone, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's quite. Yeah, it's quite worrying, isn't it? I mean, Laura, I know you've been careful not to get your personal account suspended on Twitter, as have I. And I mean, what do you think about this, especially from a UK perspective with the law and you know, everything that's going on? What's your take on this censorship?
I thought that we'd been suspended because I opened up the Defend Europa account on Twitter and it was just locked, and I'll be quite careful not to get suspended, but it just basically told me to delete the profile picture, which I did. But Red Ice actually retweeted us just afterwards when we said that the picture had been put down as a hate symbol, and they said something that I thought was very interesting. They said it's European history and white history that get told. And I can't actually think of a single example of where a Muslim has been asked to remove the crescent moon and star, or a Jewish person has been asked to remove the Star of David. It is literally just white history all the time, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and if you look at it from the perspective, you think about, I mean, a lot of people, African Americans, use the Black Power symbol and the Black Fist and all that stuff, and a lot of that's actually associated with racism. You know, African Americans having a certain negative opinion of white Americans, and also what I could only call black supremacy, and that has led to violence in America in particular, and it's coming to Europe too. So there is that interesting paradox in that their hate symbols in inverted commas are fine, but ours are censored. So
yeah, it's always the same logic, some kind of double standard. Like, especially going back to the Muslim thing, we live in a society where basically any kind of religion, be it Christianity, be it paganism, whatever, is being treated as some kind of mental illness by the status quo. But we live in this kind of secularist society, but this kind of secularism is not harming the Muslim way of life. It's such a stupid double standard that really makes me go crazy, because I can't understand how these liberals can spend days and days bitching about Christianity, but they will never say a single thing about Islam. It's crazy.
There was the Norwegian. Did you see is it the Winter Olympics uniform as well?
Yeah.
With the rune on, that's exactly the same. Just, I mean, Twitter was going mental about that, just calling them Nazis and everything for having a rune on their clothes.
Yeah, because basically one of the runes on the sweater, I think it's called the tier one. the one that looks like an arrow pointing up, was used by the Hitler Youth or something, and therefore anyone using that is therefore a Nazi according to the mainstream media. But what these people tend to forget is that it's part of the Scandinavian heritage. They are basically telling the Norwegians to stop being Norwegian. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think in England, in Germany it's the Tuas rune, and in Scandinavia, you're right, it's the Tyr rune. I think it's funny because, I mean, obviously people can point out examples of the National Socialists using algis or Tuas, you know, they used all sorts of things. We know that some of them were occultists and whatever. So, but then, you know, you've got to think, well, should we ban healthcare for women because the Nazis used it? You know, it's so stupid. Where does it stop?
Or animal rights, for example.
Yeah, exactly. You've got all these things, and you can't say just because this bad person used this symbol, then therefore it's always bad. You know, you've got to have some context. I mean, I don't know what you think, Laura, about the context issue, because as you know, we never post anything violent or racially abusive. Yet they've told us we're using a hate symbol.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the ADL teamed up with Twitter after we'd been established, so we already had the rune as our logo, and we've got it everywhere, haven't we? It's all over the website. It's on all our graphics. I think if we could have chosen again, knowing that the ADL had teamed up with Twitter, we probably wouldn't have chose that, because their hate symbol database is just absolutely ridiculous. It's got like, there's about 50 different numbers in there which are hate symbols. So apparently, like, you can't, 14 and 88 are obviously the obvious ones, but I think like numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and like just a load of numbers are hate symbols. So I don't know where it ends, to be honest.
Well, exactly, it's ridiculous when you've got, you know, they're saying that certain formulations of numbers are now hateful. It's ridiculous, but that's an interesting point. I mean, we know that Twitter take their guidance from the ADL in these matters, but I mean, just how big a role do organisations like the ADL, you know, play in private companies' decisions to censor opinion?
Well, it was after they announced that they were teaming up with the ADL to look at hate symbols that we had the big Twitter pages. I remember there were a few nights where our followers were dropping, weren't they? About 50 to 100 at a time. And that was after Twitter had officially announced that they were teaming up with the ADL. So they definitely are playing a part in it.
Yeah, basically the ADL is probably giving them the 8 signs, you know? Like the ADL gonna find something, they say this shit is an hate crime. Therefore, the file with the picture is gonna be given to the bot, and the bot is gonna start studying it, and then basically spamming people who have that kind of picture. So I guess they started with basic stuff like swastikas and I guess Hitler pictures, and then they went with, you know, more lighter stuff. And now they are starting with runes.
Yeah.
One by one.
But they say that they're supposed to take each occurrence in the context that it's in, but I don't think they are, because I know people on Twitter who have just used a swear word in a tweet to one of their friends and then been suspended for writing a swear word.
Oh yeah. It happens.
I feel like they're going a little bit trigger happy. It just seems to be whatever they decide is wrong, and then you can't question it.
No, because they want to control every single account, but of course you don't have the manpower to do it. So the only way to do it is have some kind of algorithm or bot to do it. And yeah, it's not working, and the platform is dying. It's bleeding users every single day.
Yeah, it's a very concerning situation. But as you say, the platform is dying, and obviously we're becoming quite a large organisation now. So we've got a website. We're on podcasts like this. We're on Gab. We're on Facebook. So really, you know, Twitter's only a small part of that, thankfully, and we can find ways around it. So yeah, that's a positive aspect of this situation.
I think another thing with regards to censorship as well, away from Twitter, is the hate speech arrests that are going on. I know we have it really bad in the UK. I'm not sure how it is for you, Alex, in Italy. But
I mean,
over in the UK, sorry, go on.
it's not that bad at all. Like compared to you guys in UK or Germany, we have people basically posting whatever they want, and usually nothing happens. But if certain politicians are not happy with what you say about them, they're gonna send the police to your house. I mean, they can actually do it. But nothing is gonna happen to you because you're not actually breaking the law, but they can basically check your house and have some background checks on you, which is bullshit. Like 2 weeks ago, one old guy from Cosenza, which is like in the south of Italy, in Calabria or something like that, one old guy of 57, 58 years made some shitty Photoshop of Laura Boldrini, which is the one of the most important members of this crazy coalition leftist government, with basically her head chopped off and saying, you keep bringing the violence from Africa, and sooner or later this is the death you deserve, something like that, you know, like the classic boomer posting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And basically she got triggered by the picture and sent the police to his house. This guy is not like the kind of low IQ guy with family. Like, of course he's not smart, but he's not a criminal, he's not a terrorist. He just made a shitty Photoshop. So yeah, if they want, they can actually send police to your house. And if they really want to ruin you, they're gonna try to find anything that can be seen as extremist in your house and frame you for that. So yeah, I mean, this guy kind of exaggerated a bit because, of course, you know, photoshopping a dead woman with her head chopped off is not nice. But the sentiment is something that is shared among many Italians. These politicians are betraying us. They're letting in thousands and thousands of African migrants for committing crimes. They're bringing their own criminality, their own mafia. So yeah, people are frustrated. And of course, people are going to get violent or aggressive or just negative. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in Germany, I know it's particularly bad. You know, you see these ridiculous stories where they're bringing like 90-year-old grandmas in front of the courts for posting, you know, silly memes with refugees being shot or whatever. You know, it's just ridiculous, really, when there's actual crime going on and they think this is a priority. But I think that brings us nicely to the next topic, if you're happy to move on.
Yeah, sure.
Which is the Italian elections coming up, 4th of March, yeah?
Yeah, just 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks. So that's a hot topic right now. And I wondered, Alex, if you could, you know, just give our listeners a bit of background as to, you know, what the polls are saying, who's running, who's the likely candidates, things like that.
Sure thing. So I'm going to use as a source my own article that I wrote a while ago. And basically, what I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to talk about the various parties, the major parties running for these elections. And then I'm going to tell you why Lega is the best option for any kind of nationalist all around Europe. So one of the major players is the Five Stars movement. Many of the people listening will be thinking about some kind of weird populist party that is also occasionally Eurosceptic, but no, that's not true. Recently, in the last months, the new leader of the party, Di Maio, changed direction a lot. And now this kind of weird movement is some crypto-leftist populist party which is no longer against the EU and no longer against the euro. And basically, they managed to get votes of all the dumb people in the country. I'm not joking, from both the right and the left, because basically this party is the contrarian position. Like they're only good at being the opposition. But if eventually they would win, they wouldn't be able to do anything, because all they can do is basically say, no, we do not agree. And I'm not joking, it might sound crazy, but yes, such a party exists, and this party has around 25-30% of the votes. It's crazy. Moving on.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I was
sure,
just
sure.
going to...
No, yeah, go ahead.
If I can just pick up on that issue about the Five Star Movement, because I noticed that if you take the parties outside the coalition, so you just take the parties on their own, the Five Star Movement is technically the most popular.
Yes, correct.
But in reality, it has because the other parties won't work with it. It has little chance of forming a government.
It's not zero, but it's very low. Right now, let me check the current polls.
I think it's 26.3 or something.
Yeah, but I'm checking the polls for today. It's around 27.6.
Oh wow! So it's gone up a little bit.
Yeah. They actually got 2 points or something like that. But it keeps changing every single day. Actually, let's start with the polls first of all. So the Five Star Movement has around 27.6. The right-wing coalition has a total of 37%, which is split among 3 different parties, actually 4 different parties. So the one leading the coalition is Forza Italia of Berlusconi with 17.9. Then we have Lega with 12.3. And then we have Fratelli d'Italia with 4.6. And then Noi con l'Italia 1.2. This is the right-wing coalition, which is right now leading the elections surveys with 36. Then we have the leftist coalition, which is around 27% or something like that, divided among Partito Democratico with 23.6%, Liberi Uguali 5%, and some other groups with 1.5, 1.2. And this is leftist coalition, which is very scattered, very different ideas, and honestly, there is so much division among them that I don't see them ever agreeing on stuff. Because one of the little parties, Liberi Uguali, the 5%, one is basically the part of the left which despises the leader of Partito Democratico, Renzi. So yeah, the left right now is very scattered, and they're falling apart.
So that's quite good, because I mean, the Five Star Movement have no chance, and a lot of people outside of Italy, especially in the UK, they think a lot of people who are against the EU think that the Five Star Movement's great. But I know from talking to you and other people that in reality, the Five Star Movement is a mishmash of contrarians, as you said.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
They're crypto leftists who want basically to give, gifts to everybody, and it's just they're not good on immigration. They're not good on the Eurozone. They're not good on anything.
So there's a lesson to our listeners outside of Italy. The Five Star Movement is a false god and will not achieve the change that's necessary. So
they must not be trusted.
Exactly. So I sort of 2 points. I want to ask you about Lega and Salvini, but first of all, I want to ask about Berlusconi, because he's barred from holding public office, isn't he?
Yeah, he still is.
So if the right-wing coalition were to win, who is the most likely candidate for Prime Minister?
Basically, the coalition decided this before forming the coalition, that whoever gets the more votes in the coalition will decide the PM, the Prime Minister. And right now, it's very likely that Berlusconi will be the one picking the Premier, the Prime Minister. And he already given a name. His name is Tajani. And he's, the average classic moderate. And he's, of course, some kind of center-right politician. And currently, he's holding a seat either in the European Parliament or leading some kind of list. I don't remember, something irrelevant. But basically, this guy is not an anti-Eurozone guy. He is not anti-Europe, European Union, and is not anti-Euro. So we don't want that guy to be leading the coalition. We don't want that. But it's likely that he will be leading the coalition if Berlusconi gains the most votes in the coalition.
So, I mean, on the back of that, I suppose, obviously Lega have some part to play in the coalition. So if I can just ask you, tell us a bit about them and their platform, and also how much influence realistically will they have in a hypothetical right-wing government coalition?
Lega is a very weird and always evolving kind of party. Lega was founded many years ago by some workers and some politicians like Bossi in the province of Varese. And it used to be quite the left-leaning party against, the abuse of workers and stuff like that. And also very focused on regionalism, Padania, which is a region that doesn't really exist, which is basically the north of Italy, and separatism. That's how Lega was born. It wasn't a nationalist party. But over the years, first with the coalitions with Berlusconi in 2 of his governments, and then with the new leadership of Salvini, the party took a slightly different take on politics, and now nowadays they just recently removed the North party in their name, and now it's just Lega. Lega has been very current on the Euro question and European question. They've always been Eurosceptic, and they're always talked about leaving the currency, the common currency. Why are they our guys? Well, first of all, their economists, Alberto Bagnai and Claudio Borghi, are 2 excellent professors and economists, and they're very, very trustworthy. These people, they want to take us out of the euro. They are openly saying it. And there are 2 options when it comes to the elections. First of all, well, they need to win. We need to win. In the case we win, we need to have at least 40% of the votes. That's how the elections works. With the new law, you have to get at least 40%. If you don't get the 40%, there is no way you're going to form a government. And in case this happens and the coalition wins, if Lega would be leading, it's very likely that Italy will join the Visegrad countries in the fight against Brussels. It's very likely. And also, Italy will probably start being friendlier to Russia, because Lega is pro-Russia. But if, which is more likely, the coalition wins, but Berlusconi's party is leading, what could happen is that we're going to have some center-right coalition that will be cacked on the Europe question and the Euro thing. But so Berlusconi will have to make a deal with Salvini, and probably thousands of migrants will be still deported, which is good, but not good enough. Will be a start, of course, but if Berlusconi is the one leading, the result will be quite weak, and the changes will be minimal.
Right, so I guess that sort of answers the question about the influence, because obviously there'll be a junior partner in a coalition, so I suppose there'll be compromises, like in Austria. So it won't solve all the problems, but it's a start, isn't it? It's a good position to start from.
It can be some kind of cultural shift, basically showing people that there is another way other than the leftist, Europeist politicians, which of course in the last 7 years have disappointed the Italians.
So that's important for people to know as well, that Lega, even if they're the junior partner, they can still influence things, and changes can still happen, even if they're not outright victors. So I think that's very important. The one thing I do want to talk about is the Macerata. Is it Macerata?
Macerata.
Macerata attack, yeah, where basically, as many people know, a guy attacked some African migrants, I think, in a drive-by shooting.
Luca Traini.
Yeah, but obviously what people don't realise is that was in response to violence caused by migrants. They killed a young girl, didn't they? I think if you could just tell us a bit about the background on that and what impact, if any, that's had on the campaign, the political campaign.
Macerata has been everywhere in the Italian media It has been very shocking because, first of all, everything started with the murder and dismemberment of Pamela. Pamela Mastropietro is a girl of 18 years. She was found dead, torn into pieces in 2 different trolleys by one guy driving in the street. He saw these 2 trolleys, he opened them, and what he found was these body parts of a young female and with missing parts and, well, disgusting stuff. And apparently a Nigerian was arrested for this, but the story is still developing. The case is still not closed, and apparently it has to do with some voodoo shit related to the Nigerian mafia, which is a very, very dangerous problem right now. They're growing, they're colonizing Italy when it comes to criminality. They're taking over all the drug markets, and yeah, and basically it's very likely that Pamela was killed for some weird voodoo ritual, and people were angry, are still angry. And one of these people being angry was this guy called Traini, who basically one day he just left his home with his gun and shot at random black bystanders, which many of them, I think there were like 7 of them being wounded. I believe at least 2 of them were pushers, which probably had something to do with, of course, the Nigerian mafia, and it was some kind of revenge attack. When it comes to the results of this, well, of course, the left tried to bank on it, saying the fascism is back in Italy, the fascists are going to start a race war, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to polls and the opinion of Italians, it actually didn't change much in the way the left wanted. Actually, Traini is getting a ton of support from Italians. People are trying to pay for his legal funds, and yeah, Italy is getting very polarized. I'm not saying we're reaching American levels of polarization, but we're getting there. And in fact, the Antifa groups all over Italy have become much more active, and even today they clash with the police. Some days ago they clashed with the police in Piacenza, and one policeman was basically brutally beaten, and they broke some of his bones, and now some people are getting arrested. But it's getting crazy. It's like these elections are very, very hot.
Yeah, it does seem to be heating up a bit, and I've been trying to draw a parallel between that and the UK's Brexit referendum, because as you know, we had an MP killed by a crazy dude a few days before. Yeah, that's right. And it's becoming a pattern. Like in Sweden before the Euro referendum, a pro-Euro politician was mysteriously killed, and these sorts of things. It makes you wonder. Because there's a lot of coincidences of these things happening around election time, and it does sometimes make you wonder. But it's good to know that it's not having a massive impact on the polls.
Yeah, Italians are just tired of this shit. They just don't care anymore, because the common opinion is, okay, this guy fucked up, and yes, he should be jailed, but this is gonna get worse. People know that if the immigration problem is not stopped, things like people like Traini will become like an everyday thing, because people are tired. Italy is a country that has been enduring a heavy crisis for years. People are starting to understand that the left cannot be trusted, that they're basically traitors. And of course people are gonna start losing their mind. And I don't blame them. I'm not justifying what Traini did, because it's a pointless act. But I don't even condemn him. Like, this guy should be jailed, yes, but an 18-year-old woman was killed, probably raped, because now they're saying they're finding traces of sperm and other stuff. She was like raped, killed, drugged, and then cut into pieces. How is that not gonna piss off people? Like, we're reaching levels of savagery that we have never seen before in Italy, and people are tired.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've obviously, as you say, we don't condone violence, and we don't think people should go around, taking the law into their own hands. But when we see horrible crimes committed by migrants, obviously it's understandable that some people are going to get pretty upset about it, especially if it seems that the culprits are not being punished.
It's like over here when we had the Finsbury Park mosque attack. We just had 3 terrorist attacks. 22 people had been killed, and then 8, and then 5, and literally nothing was getting done about it. Theresa May did a speech where she said that she was going to monitor the internet, but that was about it. And then we had a guy take it into his own hands, and he drove a van into a group of Muslims outside a mosque. So, like we say, we don't condone violence, but you can understand why people are starting to feel frustrated, and they feel like nothing's happening, so they feel like they have to do something.
Yeah, it's a very concerning situation, and like you say, we don't want violence on the streets of Europe, but the politicians who brought this on us are sort of asking, they're creating the conditions.
It's on them. I remember you tweeted something like, Merkel, this blood is on your hands, and it's true. Because they're causing this. Yeah. They're causing this kind of situation that people just don't reason anymore, and the blood is in their hands. Yeah, always. Exactly.
So, I mean, but it's good to know that it's not really harming the right-wing coalition's electoral.
No, actually, Lega gained 0.5 from the shooting. So I don't know, man. Like, people are they don't give a shit. They really don't give a shit, because like some of the people that even got shot are criminals. So why should I feel bad for some of them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's a non-issue, really. I mean, it's not going to affect the election. So that's
nobody
good.
died, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, someone gun wouldn't, yeah, and it's a terrible crime, but nobody died. So these people are lucky. Nobody got killed, and there is no kind of massacre. But Pamela is dead. She's dead. She got cut up into pieces. Why is nobody talking about that anymore? Like, our media are so fucking disgusting. Because of course they have to listen to the government and just talk about the evil fascists. Like, even the Guardian made an article about how Italy is becoming fascist again. They basically had this kind of opinion piece written by Saviano, who's an open, progressive guy that wrote some stuff against the mafia, which of course I approve. But then this guy is like the classic Antifa, you know. And I'm actually thinking about writing some kind of response article to what Saviano said. But basically, to sum it up, he's saying that Italians are racist, xenophobic, you know, the usual stuff that the progressives say. But it's not like Italians are hateful people. They're just tired, and they know that if things don't change, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been to Italy, and obviously you can testify that Italians by nature are not violent people. They're not criminal people. But like you say, when this sort of stuff happens, I mean, that poor girl Pamela, what happened to her was disgusting, and you know, people are tired, like you said, and it's got to end. But on that note, I'd like to just ask if you have any sort of final comments about the Italian election, anything you think the listeners should know that's important, or anything you want to say about that.
No, I think I said the most important things. Like, our guys are the Lega members and their candidates. Beyond that, it's all about what the Italians want to do with their future. If the right wingers will be voting for Lega, that's good. If they're not going to do it, we're going to have to wait more years. But eventually, I think people will understand that we have to vote into parliament some party that is actually against the European Union. If not, it's going to be too late for us. One last thing, there is a party that is growing and has been making quite a lot of noise. It's called Casa Pound, and basically they are right now the biggest fascist party in Italy. And there's a lot of discussions about this topic. Basically, in order to get into parliament, you have to reach the 3%, which is very high. 3% is like, what? More than 3 million, something like that, of votes, which is a lot. And it's very likely that they're not going to get it. But if that happens, Italy is going to go crazy, because the left will lose its mind. Because Casa Pound has been growing a lot in the last years. They keep opening new sections and recruiting members. They have like over 25,000 members all around Italy, and some major politicians from the left are finally start talking about them. Personally, I do not support Casa Pound because even though they have many good propositions on some social stuff and migration, they are a secularist party, and they are basically taking weird positions, like they're pro gay unions. They are okay with, like, for example, blacks joining the ranks, so they're not basically any different from any center-right party when it comes to that. So yeah, they're not the ideal far-right party, in my opinion, but still, since they're very good at making propaganda and reaching to poor people, because I think they do often is like giving food and help to Italian poor people, they're getting some attention. But personally, I do not like them, but I know that many do outside of Italy. But you should really try to find their manifesto, and you will change your mind, because they're not what many fascists think they are. They're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know that they're doing good things on the ground for people who have fallen on hard times. But as you say, they're not really an ideal electoral choice. They're
no. It's a wasted vote.
Yeah, so I think Liga are our guys, and people outside Italy should know that if they're supporting the election in any way, if they want to help out the cause, then Liga is the party you want to be pushing. So I think we've got some interesting points on that. I mean, the other topic that I wanted to bring up today was Austrian politics, and I know Laura's been looking into this a little bit. Basically, an Israeli MP has gone to Austria and to meet the Vice Chancellor Heinz Christian Strache and the Foreign Minister Karin Kneissl, I think that's how you pronounce it, Kneissl, of the Freedom Party. And that's interesting because the Jewish lobbies in Israel have always seen the Freedom Party as this sort of neo-Nazi group and whatever. But it's interesting they're sort of engaging in a bit of a détente with them. That does then raise some interesting questions because the media has been pushing this quite a lot. And I sort of want to get a feel for do you guys and Laura in particular, because you've looked into this, do you think the Freedom Party of Austria has done a volte-face and is now climbing into bed, as it were, with the Zionist right, with the UKIPers and the Dutch Freedom Party type right wingers?
When I was reading the articles that you sent me over today, I know there were 3 separate articles. The feel that I got was that they were kind of just going through the motions and maybe just doing what they thought they had to do to put the right public image out there. I guess we don't know. I mean, it's either that, and they're just doing what they feel they have to do to put the correct image out there, or maybe they have jumped into bed with Israel. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. It's a bit early to say, and like you said, it could be a very clever PR campaign to try to stop people accusing them of being Nazis, because after all, they're not Nazis. On the other hand, it could be a change of position, and that could be quite worrying, because then that brings up support for certain wars in the Middle East, which might be beneficial to Israel. And whilst in itself what Israel does is Israel's business, but we don't really want it impacting on European politics, so it could be concerning in that respect. On that note, I mean, the FPO does have a bit of a colourful past in that it was started by a former SS officer after the war in 1956. And they've recently set up a panel to investigate their own past, to try, as they put it in their own words, to root out anti-Semitism and racism. Often those words are a smokescreen for going soft. Obviously, we don't want, racial abuse, but when people feel they have to denounce their past and talk about anti-Semitism, that often means they are going soft. So, I mean, do you guys think that, and it's open to both of you, do you think the FPO is going soft in the context of this panel and the meetings, or do you think it's part of the wider PR campaign?
I mean, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say it's a PR move, which is also what I hope, because if they go soft, their voters are going to be extremely disappointed. I totally understand if they do this for PR, because currently we live in a society where anything that is basically not nativist is right. I mean, if you do anything for the natives, it's automatically racist, which is bullshit, and we know it, but maybe they have to hide it somehow. But if they're gonna go soft, it's gonna be a disaster, because already Kurz has been going all around Europe saying how much he loves the European Union, and no, we're not gonna leave it, and shit like that. And we need someone in the coalition to actually, try to do something as a real nationalist. Because, there's a thing I always say, and I'm pretty sure we all agree on this, that if you call yourself a nationalist, you cannot be a Zionist. You just can't. The two things don't fit. You either care about your country or you care about Israel. And some people say, no, you can't do both. It doesn't happen. Because all the American Zionists, they always think about Israel first. We have seen all the wars, as you said. We don't want no more. Europeans are looking for peace, not war.
Exactly, and like I said, and I'll say it again. I mean, what Israel does is Israel's business. But as you say, if you've got a split loyalty, that can then compromise your judgment. So you might support a war that you wouldn't otherwise support.
Or even trade. It's not just about war, but it's like trade, economy, everything. It's about everything, because it's not just war. If you start trading with certain countries because that basically favorites the Jewish lobbies, that's bullshit. You shouldn't do that because they ask you to do it, but only if it actually does the interest of your own country. It's such a simple thing, but yet many people fail to understand that.
Exactly, and we would quite like to be on okay terms with Iran, for example, because there's some trading opportunities there. But because if your government is a Zionist government, then you're not automatically, that says, right, you can't trade with Iran, you can't be friendly with Russia, you can't support peace in Syria. It closes down all these options. And like you said, it's about much more than war. So yeah, I mean, like you said, the FPO voters will be very disappointed if they have taken this turn. But I agree with you that we should probably give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they're quite new to government. It's probably a PR campaign. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, like I said, my feeling was that they were just kind of going through the motions, but I'm not really sure why they've set up this panel. I mean, just to clarify, it's their own people, isn't it, that are researching the history of the party.
It's ever so interesting. They're basically, the party has set up a panel staffed by party members to investigate the history of their own party. It's quite weird that no other party has ever done this.
So the media,
I don't know what you think about that.
Sorry, the media are coming out, and Israel as well. I know they've met with Kurtz and Strack recently, but Israel and the media are coming out and saying it's not good enough anywhere, because you need an independent researcher to look into the history of your party. But they're even wanting to meet up with it's like student network groups that have got ties to the party and look into all sorts of private records and stuff. It just seems a bit unnecessary to me. It frustrates me a little bit how everyone's kind of walking on eggshells for.
Yeah, but it kind of shows that we are not really in charge of our own states. It shows how weak the nation states are nowadays, and how they're basically giving away their power because of lobbies and foreign interests. It's not just Israel, but it's also America, for example. America is such a terrible influence on Europe, and yet people tend to forget that. America is not our friend. The United States are not our friends.
Yeah, quite. I mean, obviously, individual Americans listening, it's nothing personal, but
yeah, of course. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to attack individual Americans. Yeah,
no, it's fine. But I think what we're getting at here is that the American government has often led us down a path in Europe that isn't right for us, that isn't right for our values and our traditions, and when you've got that close relationship between America and Israel, you end up, if you're bowing to the will of one of them, you're bowing to the will of both of them. So again, that's another worrying development for the Freedom Party into what view they take about Atlanticism or Europeanism.
For example, not just Israel, but the United States are way too friendly with, for example, Saudi Arabia, which is also another country that is not doing any good for Europe with their oil market and all the stuff. So I think we need to become Eurocentric again. We need to focus on our own continent.
We're the same with Saudi Arabia. We have a relationship there, which is, I mean, Theresa May was supposed to publish a report, I think it was last year, which detailed kind of the ins and outs of our relationship with them, and then she decided to make it private so that nobody could see it. So what's going on there?
It says a lot, because I mean, I agree that the relationship with Saudi Arabia is cancerous in so many ways. I mean, we sell them weapons that they use to kill children. They hold us to ransom with oil. That they get us involved in their proxy war with Iran, and it's just, the whole thing is a mess. And Saudi Arabia, I think a certain Louise Mensch said this once, is basically ISIS with an embassy. They're the respectable face of Wahhabism.
Yeah.
And any association with them is totally poisonous to Europe.
Totally.
I agree.
I mean, Wahhabis are like probably the worst sect of Islam. Not like any kind of Islam is good, but Wahhabis are for sure the worst. Like, these people, not even other Muslims like them. Like, everybody hates Wahhabis, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Shias hate them, the other Sunnis hate them, and that is Saudi. And I think if we bring it back to the context of the FPO, I mean, the Freedom Party of Austria, there is that sort of question: will they? Because I know they haven't been particularly fond of Saudi in the past, and they're certainly against Islam. And we don't want to see these positions change, because they're in government and they have an opportunity to change things. Which sort of leads me nicely on to my next question, which, Laura, I'm going to direct to you, because I know because of the referendum, you're obviously quite clued up on the European Union and things like that. Now, it's Austria's turn to take control of the European Council presidency in July. For those who don't know, each country takes it for 6 months and it rotates. Now, what influence do you think the Freedom Party can have on the wider picture of the European Union when Kurz's government takes the presidency in July? What do you think is going to happen there?
I personally don't think he will have much influence. I mean, I don't know too much about it, to be honest, but I just feel like they're kind of so set in their ways, and I think there are so many leaders in the EU that hold so much power. I don't think that he'd be given a chance to change much, to be honest. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is the problem with the structure of the European Union, isn't it? Because the power should reside with the Council, because that is the 27, now not 28, 27 heads of state who are directly elected. The problem, I think, is that you've sort of inferred there is that the people that hold the power in the European Union are the European Commission, and they're totally unelected. They have no mandate, they're set in their ways, and those are the people who hold the power. So it's probably unlikely that the Austrian government will be able to change much because the Commission is too stubborn to reform. So, I mean, as much as we'd like them to change things, it might be very difficult for them to do so.
The only way to
Yeah.
change things nowadays is to elect people that decide to work together with other Eurosceptic countries like Poland or Hungary. We need governments that actually openly side with the Visegrad countries, and in that way we can form some kind of resistance in the European Union. Without that, I don't think like individual government can actually change things by themselves.
They just don't seem
Yeah.
to. Sorry, go on, William.
I was just going to say that
I
I
was just gonna
agree,
say that-
and that I think the one thing that they might be able to do is cool down the witch hunt against Hungary and Poland that's currently being pursued by the European Commission and Parliament. If Austria can go some way to bringing the Visegrad countries in from the cold, that might be a start. Sorry, what were you going to say on the matter, Laura?
I was just going to say I watch I watched quite a lot of speeches in the EU Parliament, and I watched like every single one that Nigel Farage does, and they do get a lot of cheers, you know, when they make speeches that we'd agree with. So I mean, there must be people in there that are kind of on our side, but I know whenever they put things to vote, it always just seems like no one's interested or no one has any, you know, like for example the was it the South Africa one that we posted something about on our Twitter account, where they voted on whether they should just do an investigation into it. And the lady that gave the speech gave this really sort of heartfelt speech and loads of examples about farmers being killed in South Africa. And she just said, you know, you've got a chance to do something good here, let's have a vote on it. And no one put their hands up in agreement with it. So I don't really know what goes on. Sorry, go on.
I mean, the European Parliament is totally what's the word? I mean, they're just yes men, aren't they? They just go in, they press their buttons, and they leave. I mean, they don't really. It's only the Eurosceptics that actually do any work there. The rest of them just nod their heads and take the paycheck, don't they?
Yeah, that's how it seems. But like I say, when Farage is doing a speech, you hear quite a lot of people cheering him on sometimes, and then I just think, why aren't these people doing something to make more of an impact? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Austrian government, when it takes the presidency, won't be able to have any impact over that either. So I don't think we should expect too much because we'll be disappointed, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's too early to have some kind of revolution. Like Brexit has been like the opening, but people are not waking up faster enough in the rest of Europe. And even when it comes to Brexit, like it's taking so long because of the Tories being, you know, what they are.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. And we're just getting so much abuse back from the EU as well. Just even like really senior officials that are supposed to be professional just tweeting stupid stuff about Leave voters being stupid and stuff. And
no, but the worst guy is like, what is he called? I think we shared something either on our personal accounts, on the Defend Europa account, Guy Verhofstadt or something like that.
Yeah. Guy Verhofstadt, yeah.
He's so fucking awful.
Yeah, but they're so open about the fact that they're against it and that they're going to punish us if we do leave and make things difficult for us. I mean, obviously I voted leave, but I don't know how anyone could have voted Remain and then they've seen this behaviour from the EU now and they're thinking, I want to be part of that. Like, if I did vote Remain before because of economics, I definitely wouldn't want to stay in now after this performance.
Yeah.
Well, it's just showing it's Brussels, isn't it? I mean, I think what our listeners have got to be perfectly aware of is that this isn't a rift between Britain and other European countries or Hungary and other European countries. It's the Brussels elites, the Brussels clique, who represent nobody, who are causing the dramas, who are creating the headlines, who are whipping up ill feeling in the media. These people, I mean, the only saving grace of the matter is that they are tying their own noose, as it were. They're ensuring that their project will fail because of the way they behave towards the East and towards us, and in some ways towards Austria, and even Italy, Alex, with the past few years of EU interference, Brussels interference.
Oh, we are one of the biggest victims of that. Like, no, people tend to forget that the last elected government in Italy ages back to 2011, when basically Berlusconi's government was shut down by Europe. We had basically some kind of bloodless coup d'etat. It's crazy. People tend to forget that. But in the last 7 years, we didn't have any kind of real election. And one of the main reasons why people are so hyped up about these elections is that we're going back to voting, which is crazy for Italians, because, like, 7 years doesn't seem like a long time, but it actually is.
Well, it's amazing because the left and the liberals, they talk about fascism, but they always neglect to mention, and this is a really important point to stress to the listeners, that Brussels took democracy away from Italy. They took representation away from Italy, and they installed a government of technocrats. Now, that's closer to any kind of fascism than Liga or Berlusconi or anything like that.
Oh yeah, totally.
So and that's a really important point to make, that Italy was totally screwed by the European Union.
Actually, our left is very close to what Corbyn is, some kind of totalitarian censoring crazy machine. They want to silence any person that is not a leftist, basically. Recently, the Italian left is fastly becoming like the American one, basically calling anyone who says anything about immigration racist or a fascist. Like, these words are being thrown around like crazy. Like, Italy used to be like, very peaceful country when it came to these things. Like, there wasn't so much bitching about racism, feminism, and all that stuff. But in the last 2 years, it has been growing and growing, and it's not working for the left because most Italians don't give a shit. Like, I don't know if you go in the UK or in America and someone gets called racist, they're probably gonna feel very uncomfortable. But here, people actually don't really fucking care. So yeah, the left is not having you laugh, but it's true. Like, people don't fucking care. I've seen people calling black people niggers in the open and in front of them, and people just don't even bother to say anything. It's like, I'm not saying this to be proud or anything, but it just, I feel like on the social point of view, we are, I guess, a bit better than the rest of Europe because people are not that judgmental. And what the left is doing is polarizing more people to the right, because you see moderates get called racist and fascist all the fucking time, and that pisses them off, and sooner or later they're gonna move eventually to the right. It's that easy. It's how it worked with me. Like, my first vote when I was 18, and I'm not joking, and I'm very ashamed of this, and I'm gonna regret saying this, but my first vote went to the Liberals. I'm not joking. When I was 18, my first freaking vote went to the fucking PD, Partito Democratico, for the European elections. And I used to be a moderate, but then people started calling me racist for saying that illegal immigration was bad. And it might sound stupid and childish, but that's how you take the first red pills, because you notice that being a moderate doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I think the left, and it's a liberal thing, isn't it? The liberals, they're pushing a lot of people who, like you say, ordinarily would be moderates. They're pushing them to the far right because, by trying to restrict their language, by telling them what they can't do and can't say,
what
and
to
can't
think.
wear. What to think, exactly, what to think, yeah. And that.
Like, I'm pretty sure most of the listeners and readers of Defend Europa, they have read 1984. And what the left is doing is all the things that book warned us about. Censorship, recording, wrong-thinking people, double think, basically believing the same thing and then denying it. Like, all the things that Orwell called out are happening nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know
exactly.
what?
And sorry, Laura, go on.
I was going to say, do you know what? I'm always going on about this book, but do you know what other book it's like? The Turner Diaries. That is what's happening in the world right now. I was reading some last night, and they call it like the organisation, I guess what we'd call the establishment, and they do things like introduce. You have to carry ID cards around and stuff like that they scan, and they say, "Oh, we're doing this to watch illegal migrants and make sure that they're not here and they're not doing stuff that they should be." But really, it just turns out that they're kind of censoring right-wing people and trying to keep tabs on those. And it's scary how that and 1984. It's scary how true those books seem right now.
Yeah, they're not so dystopian anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're true to life, because the ruling the ruling way, the liberal establishment way, is I think Alexander Dugin alludes to it in the Fourth Political Theory, that it's actually a form of totalitarianism, because you're either liberal or you're an outcast.
Yeah.
And that's very important. So, but I will say, and I think you guys will agree with me, and most of our listeners, that I'm a proud outcast. I'm proud to be an outcast from their system, and I think that we are on the side of virtue, and I think you guys would agree with me there.
Totally, yeah. I'm happy not to be a complicit part of this rotten society. Certainly.
Exactly. I mean, if we don't be part of the resistance, we are complicit, and that's not an option.
Yeah, we are the European resistance for real.
Exactly, and along with this generation identity and other identitarian nativist groups who are with us too. And I think, just to round off the show in a holistic way, maybe for the White Pill weekend, I think we're growing and we're achieving, and as it can be seen in Austria and with the polls in Italy, we are making progress, and that's very important. Well, if you guys want to give some closing thoughts on that.
No, go ahead, Laura, go ahead.
I was just going to say that there was a poll done in France recently. I'm sure you guys saw it, about conspiracy theories, and they asked the people of France. One of the ones that they asked about was the Great Replacement, and they said how many people in France believe that people are plotting to replace native French people with migrants from the third world, and 50% of people said that they believed that conspiracy theory. So I don't think we're a minority anymore, or we won't be soon. I think if they asked that question a couple of years ago, it would have been a very small percent, but people are waking up.
Yeah, it's going fast, and we're becoming some sort of silent majority.
Yeah, it's like Nixon's silent majority, isn't it? We're the silent majority who are actually opposed to the ruling zeitgeist, So it's very encouraging. It's very
because like we always see all the extreme leftists, like Antifa, the anarchists and communists, breaking stuff, burning entire streets, and beating people. But because they're the loud and educated ones, but we are the people that actually have jobs, people who actually are educated and are studying and actually care about the goodness of our country. And this is why we are not outside breaking the law and just being degenerates.
Yeah, exactly. We're actually we're actually living lives that the left don't have. They we're the ones, as you say, with paying the taxes, reading the books, improving ourselves to try and win this fight. So when we put it like that, it's very heartwarming. It really is, and I'm sure our listeners will agree that there's a lot of positives to take from what we've talked about today with Italy and with Austria. There's a lot of positives there. Laura, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Austria was a very good election result. And I mean, even didn't which other elections did we have last year? So France did well, didn't they, with Marine Le Pen coming second, and then Geert Wilders did well in the Netherlands. He took his party to become the second biggest party over there. We're kind of screwed in the UK at the moment, but you never know. I think
it's all right. I'm moving to the continent as soon as possible.
I don't know. We've got Henry Bolton in UKIP. That's our choice.
Oh yeah, the chief of infidelity.
Yeah, but yeah, I think a lot of people as well that I'm speaking to, away from kind of this scene and this movement, just people at work and friends from school and stuff, that they agree with most of what we say. Some of it they might.
Yeah, they're just too shy about it. They're scared of being condemned and labeled. But as long as we keep on winning these kind of cultural battles and waking up people, waking up their ethnic consciousness, reminding them who they are and why they shouldn't be ashamed of who they are, we're going to win eventually.
I agree, and I think again it's very promising, and I think that's a lovely way to wrap up the show. Actually, I think we've been on for just over an hour, so if I can just say a few closing words. As everyone knows, this is a pilot episode, the first episode. We'll be hoping to do some of these live in future. We're going to possibly rotate the chair and get some different guests on and things like that. So there's a lot to look forward to. Hit subscribe. Also, we'll put links at the bottom to our Twitter page, to our website, and a link for donations if you feel kind enough to help us out to keep doing these things. But yeah, all that's left to say is thank you for listening. I know we've enjoyed doing this. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope we can bring you. Yeah, I mean, thank you both for your parts, and hopefully we can do this again in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Brilliant. Right. Well, thank you very much, and good night.